friends, good evening to all. This is Advocate Chetan Hadolikar, and today I am going to talk on a topic of getting refund of the flat book after cancellation by the allotee. I have today along with me my fellow RERA practitioners, Advocate Satish Dedia and CA Ashwin Shah, who are the fellow panelists in which we are going to have a panel discussion on this topic. My friends, buying a flat today is everyone's dream. Many people invest their hard earned money in paying the down payment and allocate their future funds towards repayment of the loan. Usually, people buy an under construction flat, so they have a choice of flat selection and also buy time for repayment of the consideration of the flat. Today, in the competitive market scenario, builders, promoters, and developers invest a huge amount in advertisement. They hire the best agencies, and flat buyers usually get lured through this advertisement. And once when they visit the builders, they usually see the office and the site, do book a flat without any much of research work. Later, many allottees find themselves in a catchy situation when they decided to cancel a flat and demand for refund, maybe due to a personal reasons or any other reasons. Now, when they approach the builder or the promoter on cancellation of the flat, they find that the sweet language of the builder has now turned into a legal tone. Many builders and promoters or developers take this opportunity to make profit by forfeiture of the advance given, by taking advantage of the situations even though there could be a genuine case from the buyer. Discussions. In this panel discussions, I will be asking many such questions to Ashwin and Satish, and they both will answer these questions individually and give their opinions on their own. Okay. So my first question to the panelists is that whether in this present circumstances of COVID-19 and post-lockdown, whether it is advisable to seek to cancel the.
Yes. Thank you, Chetan, and I'm glad to have another video with Sri Ashwin Shah, my colleague friend. Chetan, as per my view, in present situation, the customer shall not opt for the refund because the promoters are facing liquidity issues since last almost 1 year. So even if the customer is apply for the refund, he may not get refund for next 1 year at least. So it is better that the allottees with the promoter arrive at a mutual amicable solution. And even if the transaction is not proper, the allottee shall exercise all options available with him. And if all options fail, then only the customer shall opt for the refund. This situation may change from time case to case.
Thank you, Chetan and Satish. I will have a little different view on this because when we talk of cancellation, there can be various kind of cancellation, like voluntary cancellation because of some inability on the part of allotee, or cancellation in terms of either section 18 or section 12, wherein there are some default on the part of promoter. So, as rightly said by Satish, today all the developers are facing a cash crunch, and there are many orders even prior to COVID-19, wherein the authority has granted the relief and directed to repay all the money with interest. but all these orders are lacking the implementation because of the cash crunch which is being faced by the developer. So the allotee should look at the intention of the developer, and the most important is stage of construction. Whether the stage of construction is more than 60% or it is not yet started, all this factor will decide the further course.
But I would like to ask both of you a further question. According to you all, can an amicable solution be worked out on this with the builder?
Subject to verification of promoter's ability and performance and the status of the project, as rightly pointed out by Ashwin Bhai, allotee shall first estimate the possible price that he may get after 1 or 2 years from the present date, and also calculate the losses and expenses incurred by him or may be incurred over the period till the actual refund he might get from the promoter, and accordingly he shall decide whether to go for cancellation or refund or not. Secondly, they may settle with the promoter and arrive at an arrangement that the allotee may not be required to pay further installments from that date, because this is also in favor of promoter, because in present situation I expect that around 30% cancellation may be faced by the promoter for the first time due to lockdown, and in this situation promoter will not be able to refund the amounts immediately. Secondly, the promoter may arrive at arrangement with the allotee if the allotee has not opted for housing loan or such invest other possibilities. Then the promoter shall take the burden of the interest till the actual completion of the project or actual refund. In such situation, the decision will be in the interest of the project itself, and the allotee as well as promoter both will get relief.
Yeah. So now developer will have to rework all its strategy after this COVID-19, because what cash flow plan he had is in mind may go total change because of now cash crunch or even the cancellation of booking or no demand, no sale, further no sale. So again, promoter will have to rework. He should ensure that there are less cancellation and there are some amicable solution what Satish has suggested, either sharing of some interest burden or postponing the installment call from the allotee or so on, or some furniture amenity, extra furniture amenities to the allotee when he hand over the possession. So in such a way, there is a win-win situation between allotee as well as promoter, and they are not required to knock the door of Marera authority for any complaint.
In this present COVID situation, do you advise the allottees to wait till the market is improved, or you have some other suggestions on this?
Yes, allotee, if possible, shall wait till the market is improved, because in any way, allotee is not going to get the refund immediately on asking the refund from the promoter.
So here we will discuss two scenario where the date of possession, which is mentioned in either allotment letter or agreement, has triggered prior to say March 2020, or if it is after March 2020. Because if it is after March 2020, then there is an automatic extension given by the Marera order. So wherein 6 month time has been given at present, it may increase depending upon the further situation what is coming out of COVID-19. But if the possession has triggered prior to March 2020, then this extension provision are not applicable. But again, one have to take a look, one have to take a call based on various factors, where like ability of the developer to repay the money, intention of the stage of construction, and so on. Because it would be very difficult for a allotee to realize the money from the developer in such a situation. So one has to take a cautious call, but at the same time, while making communication with the developer, the allotee should be very careful, and he should rather take proper consultancy before he write any email or any letter to the developer on this count.
So, as per Ashwin and Satish's view, you should always take and professional advice while if you want to cancel the flat or take any steps. Even I would suggest anyone not write any emails or any other thing on your own without legal consultation, because what happens that if you write something which goes across you in case you go for litigation, if you go for litigation further in RERA, so all things written in this email may go across you. So it is advisable to take legal consultation. Now, if we go further and we assume that the allotee wants to cancel the flat, so which sections of RERA will apply in such scenario, and can you briefly explain these sections? Any one of you can explain the sections?
Yeah, I will do that, Chetan. Now, allotee, there can be three scenario. One is where there is no default on the part of promoter. Means promoter is very clean, but because of some inability of the allotee, he want to cancel the booking. Like many people are facing further, how they will be making the further payment of the installment because of this COVID-19 on account of job loss or salary cut or reduction in the business income and so on. So this is called voluntary cancellation. So here the terms of allotment or booking application form or the agreement, as the case may be, will be applicable. Sometimes there are some forfeiture clause also which may go against the allotee. So allotee should be very careful while making communication with the developer. He should ensure that the forfeiture clause are not enforced by the promoter. But at the same time, promoter would be interested in ensuring that allotee does not go for cancellation because of his liquidity crunch, and further he also believes that a new sale is difficult. So let us hold the old sale. Now the second scenario is where there is a default on the part of promoter. Now there can be two kind of default. One is a false information or a misrepresentation of the facts are given by the promoter while accepting the booking. So that is covered by section 12. So here allotee can very well, but he has to prove that these are the information, misrepresentation, and he can claim refund of interest and compensation under section 12. And third one is even if there is no such false information, but promoter has already crossed the deadline of possession date which was mentioned or agreed with the allotee. So then under section 18, again he has two options. One is to withdraw from the project and claim interest, compensation and refund. And second is he remain with the project and claim interest for delayed possession. So these are the possible relief which are available to the allotee. And apart from this, there is one more relief, that is under section 14, where the promoter has changed the plan. May not be of his own apartment, but of the common area or of the building. He has increased the number of floors. Then in that scenario also, there is a possibility to claim compensation.
As per the first scenario, as explained by the Ashwin Bhai, the forfeiture condition will be against the allotee. In second scenario under section 12, as rightly pointed out by Ashwin Bhai, the customer has to establish that due to there are false representation by the promoter, and he has to establish that these information are now proved false statements under various circumstances. And that is not sufficient. He also has to establish that due to these false statements, the allotee has suffered some losses, and then only he can claim remedy of the refund under section 12. Whereas under section 18(1), the law has given clear option of refund as well as continuing with the project. Here, the COVID 2019 can help, as per my view. This word inability added in section 18.1 covers the COVID-19 situation. So this is in a way it is a inability for the promoter, and if that is resulting in delaying the project, considering the possession date given by the promoter and the balance work, this gives a cause of action for the allottee to opt for withdrawal from the project, citing the reason that they due to lockdown and post-lockdown scenario, he expects that the project will not be completed by the expected date. And in such a situation, due to this inability of the promoter, the allottee will definitely have a right, as per my view, to withdraw from the project.
Yeah. So what I understand, and from the RERA Act also, so section 18.1 and 19.4 mostly deal on this refund, compensation, interest part. Okay. So both these conditions of section 18.1 and 19.4 have to be satisfied. Is whether the allottee will be entitled to get interest and or compensation. If yes, then under which provisions?
As I said, under section 12, there is a provision to claim interest and compensation plus refund. And under section 18.1, also there is a provision to claim refund with interest and compensation. But if he want to remain in the project, then he cannot claim any compensation. He can claim interest for delayed period of possession. And under section 14, when there is a change in plan without the consent and all these things, he can claim the compensation. For even defective title of the land also, allottee can claim compensation. But
When
there,
he's staying in the project also, while staying in the project, he can claim compensation.
there nothing is mentioned, because by virtue of defective title, either it can be a false information, question number 1. If there is a defect in title at the time of booking and which has not been informed, then it becomes a false information. Then you are going to section 12 and not section 14, wherever that. But whenever there is change in the approved plan after the booking, without taking then the compensation part can be claimed by the other. Because, for example, he has booked the flat with the clear understanding that there would be a swimming pool, but later on, promoter want to remove that swimming pool from the amenities, then he can certainly ask for the compensation. Promise at the time of booking, okay, there will be a swimming pool.
Right. Section 18.2 provides remedy for a compensation in case of defect in the title. That is under section 18.1. He gets both option, retaining as well as withdrawal, and he can get interest as well as compensation subject to compliance of the conditions laid out by the section. And under the section 12, he is entitled to compensation provided the allottee establish on basis of verifiable documents that he suffered losses on account of false representation or statements of the promoter. Chetan.
So in this situation now, if the promoter has to pay interest, then from which period the interest has to be paid, or he is liable to pay?
So in case of refund application, then interest is payable from respective date of payment. Say, for example, the installment are paid in, say, 2014, 15, 16. So interest has to be calculated on the from the respective date of payment till actual refund. And interest would be as per RERA. Now here also there are some contradictory judgment, because in Maharashtra, MOFA, today also MOFA is a valid law. So if the agreement is registered under MOFA, then up to 30th April 2017, the MOFA was applicable, and thereafter now RERA has the jurisdiction. So there are certain judgment wherein the bifurcation is made up to 30th April 17, because in MOFA 9% interest was provided, and under RERA the interest is SBI MCLR, that is marginal cost of lending, plus 2%. So these are variable. Sometimes it may be 10.7, 11, 10.5 and so on, depending upon the time factor. So there are some judgment wherein interest is bifurcated in two parts, but in majority of the judgment, interest as per RERA has been ordered directly to be paid. And in case of interest for delayed possession under section as per proviso to section 18, there one view is, and there are tribunal judgment, again there are contradictory judgment of the tribunal, okay, this interest for delayed possession clause was not available under MOFA, and if the agreement are registered under MOFA, then how can that clause be made applicable? Because that option was not available to remain with the project. The only option was to get withdraw. So there the authority and tribunal have held that in such a scenario, the interest would be allowed from 1st May 2017, that is date of applicability of the RERA.
Now, we'll take the scenario when now the authority has decided to go with the litigation part. So there are two options. Once he approaches RERA, RERA allows the consumer to or the authority to file a complaint directly, or he can appoint a lawyer or a CA or anyway whoever is practicing in the field of RERA. So what, as per your, what is the suggestion? Should we authority go himself and file a complaint, or take help of a RERA practicing professional?
The allotee shall take help of a professional who is practicing in RERA, because the litigation is a technical subject and the real estate is a complicated issue. So there will be situations which anticipated by the allotee before filing the complaint, and he may ultimately give up the complaint itself, and he may not be able to lead the complaint to its logical end, and that's why I suggest that he shall take help of a professional who is practicing in RERA and is very well aware of the RERA provisions and is practicing in RERA.
Yes, the Bar RERA website for filing the complaint is very simple. So many allotee or customer, they are tempted to file the complaint on their own by paying 5,000 rupees online, mention the statement of fact in a FSR manner. In one of the case which came to me, the allotee has not mentioned the relief, what relief he wants. He has just mentioned the fact. In relief column, it was blank. So then when he went for the hearing, the adjudication officer said, since you have not asked for any relief, your complaint is not at all maintainable. So then he was frustrated, and then he approached me, and then we have to undergo all the process of amendment and all this thing. Again, amendment in relief requires the consent of the opposite party. So again, that is difficult sometimes. So all such complaint may turn out to be non-maintainable, dismissed, and again allotee will have to file a fresh complaint with a proper drafting and all this thing. So if allotee is aware of the various provision and his drafting skill is good, he can certainly venture to go on self filing of complaint. But in many cases, it would turn out to be detrimental to his
view. In my practice, I have come in various cases where the allotee has himself filed the complaint, and the complaint lacks many things. It lacks.
Yeah.
Once when they are called for hearing, and the judge who's sitting there points out to them, then after that they approach a legal person who is practicing in RERA, and then it becomes a tedious task, to re-amend and again file the complaint. Because what happens, filing a complaint is your right, but amendment is the discretion of the judge. Okay, so you may lose your right over there. And secondly, what happens, another Another important thing which I want to tell you, suppose if the judge in his discretion dismisses your complaint on maintainability and does not give you a chance to refile the case, then you lose the opportunity to file a case in RERA. Then now what are your views on the additional cost of burden which will be put on to the allotee due to this litigation?
The cost will be, if compared with the absenteeism caused by the various hearings of the matter, then the allotee will ultimately find that the cost of the professional is better to bear the cost of the professional. Further, he will suffer the anxiety that is caused during the litigation period. So, considering all these factors, cost of professionals will be ultimately lesser than the losses that may suffered by the allotee due to filing of complaint independently. And the promoter will make every effort possible to delay the matter or point out various technical issues which are not anticipated by the allotee while filing the complaint, and ultimately the allotee will suffer. So it is my advice that even if allotee is well educated, he may not be aware of the procedural part of the RERA authorities on further litigation and its impact on the future litigation. The promoter may delay the matter by filing further appeal before appellate authority. And in that circumstances, if the complaint is not proper, the allotee will suffer. So in that view also, it is
I totally agree. And secondly, if the complaint is filed with after proper legal advice, then generally the reliefs are claimed for cost of the complaint. And in many cases, if the allotee wins, it is the order is passed in the favor of allotee, then the cost of complaint are also provided in the range of say 20,000 or so. So if if the legal consultant is properly putting up all the matter, then this cost of complaint can also be increased to meet the cost which allotee has incurred for the professional.
There is a huge cost involved in means whatever amount in booking what the allotee has invested in the project. As per my suggestion, the legal cost will be just a fraction of it in most of the cases. So allotee should go for the legal option.
Chetan,
A little bit ahead of this. So we
to get the advice from a professional, the allotee shall make a compilation of the available documents and information and arrange these documents and information in a sequence as per the events. For example, he shall collect the prospectus, brochure or advertisements, even whether it is in print media or in other format, that are referred by the allotee at the time of booking of the apartment. Then there may be a e-brochure, the important contents on the website of the promoter, particularly the promises, claims, assurances, and representation made by the promoter at the time of booking, and the plans, details of amenities given at the time of booking, whether attached with the brochure or not. The brochure or website containing high claims made by the promoter at the time of booking. Next is correspondence or emails exchanged by the parties. The sanction plan at the time of booking as well as the recent one, with brief details of present status of the project. The booking form or application, if any, signed, and the allotment letter or letter of intent, etc., confirming the allotment of flat to the allotee, and the payment schedule or payment plan given at the time of booking along with the brochure. The chart or statement showing the particulars of demands made by the promoter and the amounts paid by the allotee or bank, as the case may be. Separate details shall be given for the payment made towards the MVAT service tax GST to the promoter. Separate preparation shall be made for the payments or expenses incurred towards the stamp duty registration or expenses incurred for sanctioning of loan like processing fee, insurance, etc. Or the PDF format or print of Maharera web page of the project on the website of the Maharera. And from that page, he also get the orders that are passed against the promoter in that project and the copies of that orders. Any complaint or grievances posted by other allottees on online portals like Malshut, etc. The news articles, if any, are available against the promoter on the online portal. The brief details of the disputes between the allottee and the promoter, and the interest penalty, if any, demanded or levied by the promoter, and if paid by the allottee. Copy of the draft agreement and the important terms applicable to cancellation, like the procedure and the situations and deductions, forfeiture, etc. So this much information will be helpful for a professional to find out the actual case and issues in the matter. Ashwin bhai.
Yeah, as regards the compilation of information, many times we have observed that when a person comes for advice, he comes with half information, and then while going through all the communication, including email or any other letter and all this, the professional will be in a position to make out the case under which section complaint is to be filed. So even in Maharera, there is one instance of complaint wherein the date of possession was not mentioned anywhere in the allotment letter or application form, but the audio tape, means phone recording between the salesperson and the allottee, that was produced, and that was also taken as a evidence, because in RERA the Evidence Act may not apply. So RERA authority have their own procedure to establish the evidence. So in that case, the even audio recording came to the rescue of allottee as regard the date of possession. So all the information are very crucial to for a professional to form a case for the allottee under which section claim has to be made. Because for filing a complaint, you must have a cause of action. If there is no cause of action, a person cannot be aggrieved. So section 31 is very clear, which talks of complaint filing procedure where an aggrieved person can file a complaint. So if you are not aggrieved, so your complaint is not maintainable. So you have to convince the authority or the adjudication officer that this is the cause of action and I am aggrieved by this cause of action.
Okay. Okay. So what I would suggest to the allottees, any person who books a flat, you know what happens when you book a flat for the first time, when we go to the builder's site, the builder gives us a brochure, then an application form is filled, a copy is given to us. We usually do not keep it, in a safe hand. We keep it here and there. So what I would suggest that whatever documents the builder gives, you should make a proper file and keep it in a safe place. So in case when you go for in case a litigation sometime in future may happen, so all these documents will come for your rescue. Another suggestion is, many times the charts, the payment schedules are given by the builder. Many such documents are given which are in the form of printouts. They never signed before underneath. So whenever the builder gives any such documents, or the sales representative gives any such documents or printouts, it is advisable ask that sales representative to sign and stamp that document. Okay. So now we will just go a little another thing is that many of these builders have many different projects going in the area. Okay, so the allotee now has to find also the details of his other projects. So Ashwin, you just take this question. What are the different tools which an allotee can use to find information of other projects of the builder?
Uh, See now, after the introduction of RERA, and in the present case, since the booking is done in say 2019, that is post RERA, now the obligation of the allotee increases because now he is an informed customer. So RERA web page itself provide various information like development agreement, terms of the contract between landowner and promoter, and so on, and various other litigation encumbrances and all. So now he cannot take a escape. I have not been made aware of all these things because even title certificate is available on the RERA web page. So now he is a much better informed person as he was prior to RERA. So he should be very cautious. On the contrary, I would say when a person books apartment of a consideration of say 1 crore, 2 crore, but they fail to take a legal advice at that point of time. So even the suggestion is that they should take a legal advice even while taking a decision of booking because they are investing their lifetime saving into the project, and a professional would be in a much better position to go through various information which are available either on the RERA web page or on the website of the promoter or on some marketing tool like 99 acre or magic brick and all this, where promoter have posted their brochure and advertisement material, again litigation part also. So all this care has to be taken by the allotee while booking, and then by at least while filing the complaint much more precaution has to be taken because he has to collect the maximum information of the promoter which he has failed to collect at the time of booking. As you rightly say, Chetan, the allotee have the tendency not to maintain proper file of brochure and all these things, and when we ask for the brochure they say I am not having that, and then ultimately the very crucial evidence is left untouched for framing the complaint. So these are the important area. Again, on RERA website, the promoter past experience is also available, project name and all this. So on Google, one can certainly go and search the history of the promoter, his delivery record, whether he is a prompt in delivery, what are the various uh, complaint or redressal against that promoter. So again, one can take a good amount of information from other website also. Again, in encumbrance certificate is also to be uploaded by the promoter. So encumbrance means mortgage or any other encumbrance that are there on the land. So these are very crucial information. One should go at the time of booking also and at the time of filing complaint also, because this form the base of the complaint.
Satish, I know that you are an expert in scrutinizing the Maharera website, the Google, whatever is available on the net, the court websites. So, just can you give your thoughts on this searching of all this information on the internet media? Please give your thoughts on this.
See, for selling the project, the promoter would have given advertisements or something about the project on various platforms. So all this information, as rightly pointed out by Ashwin Bhai, can be helpful for the allotee, but he has to check that whether that is relevant or not. That fact has to be checked. The timing of that information has to be checked, whether it was related to prior booking or at the time booking or after booking. So that much verification shall be made by the allotee, and the relevant information can be used against the promoter. So promoter will use, or other media persons or marketing agencies would have given a lot of information on the online platforms itself. So all this information will be available, as already pointed out by Ashwin.
Many times, in many cases, we come across finding that high claims could have been made by promoters regarding their experience, management, past and present projects, the amenities given, the plans, the building, the layout, designs, etc. So, you know, how can we use this information and how to get this information so it helps us to give a strong stand in case of legal litigation?
As explained by Ashwin, to establish a case under Section 12, all such information will be helpful to the allotee to claim that these informations now prove false statements. So all such high claims made by the promoter regarding its experience, management, past and present projects, amenities, plans, building and layout design, etc., or the other amenities that may be offered, or the other plus points that may be claimed related to the project. And all such information has to be verified with the present situation. And in many cases, we found that all such claims made by the promoters are proved false statements. And in that cases, all such information will be helpful to the allotee. And he can, for example, the allotee has to go to the website of the promoter and has to download the information available on the promoter's website regarding its claims. Now, regarding the project, regarding the layout, regarding the building designs, amenities, or other features. And all such information has to be seen over a period whether such assurances are correct or satisfactory, or the promoter has made false assurances. So in that way, such information will be helpful. One can search on Google with the promoter's name with word news, and he can get various articles about the promoter, against the promoter, regarding the project or his past projects or any litigations, etc. And all such information that are relevant to the case of the allotee can be helpful to the allotee.
Yes, so in this present case, actually, we did a search out that another project of this same builder, there was a fire and a huge loss happened to that under construction building, and the project got delayed for a longer bit of time. So actually, if this is a news which I'll get easily on any website, the articles. But is this information helpful to me for my litigation or withdrawal of the project? Ashwin bhai.
No, certainly not, because your complaint would be qua project and not qua promoter. So generally complaints are filed against the project, because when we file a complaint, we have to give the project registration number, right? So we cannot say that since there was a delay in the earlier project, now also I fear that there would be delay or some malpractices, unless we prove that the misrepresentation or false information. I think complaint may not be maintainable. But while booking, now allotee has the right under section 19(1) to get the copies of approved plan, sanction plan, layout, amenities, and so on. And these are the compulsion on the part of promoter to provide it. Even MAHARERA regulation now provides that on the site office and the sales office, the copy of the approved plan should be made available. So many allotee nowadays, when they go to the sales office, they take some video also, they take some photograph also. And this could be the crucial evidence that nowhere this was displayed prominently. But as regards the any wrong performance in other project, I don't think the complaint would be maintainable for a project in which allotee has booked, unless he prove the default on the part of the promoter for this project.
Ashwin bhai is right to some extent. Allotee has to see that whether these projects have been disclosed by the promoter as past experience or not. To that extent, this information will be helpful to the allottee. To establish that the high claims made by the promoter regarding its past projects are contrary to the actual facts, and to that extent, this information.
In this, there were many complaints about this builder or this promoter in other projects about the shabby work, waterproofing not done, is not attending to complaints, and such things. I have taken a screenshot of this. So, what additional I can do so that will help me in my litigation?
See, the information that the allottee got from the portals like Mouthshot, etc., will be helpful to the allottee to the extent that the claims made by the promoter regarding its quality, etc., are actually false. And in other projects also, there are cases that the quality of the product was not proper, and to that extent, the same is helpful to the allottee. And as far as other sources are concerned, we can get more information from the web page of the project on the MAHRERA itself. For example, there will be details of other projects, as well as at the bottom of that page, the orders passed against the promoter in various complaints will be available for the allottee. So the allottee has to go through all such orders, whether in this project or other projects, and found the actual behavior of the promoter after a dispute has been arised with the allottee, and how he has treated the complaints and how he has defended the cases, whether he was genuine, his defense was genuine or not, or whether he has made the allottee's position difficult, and the allegations made by the allottee and the ultimate decision taken by the authority. All such factors will be helpful to the allottee to understand the actual character of the promoter.
That we should do a very good research of the past orders which were passed by MAHRERA against him, maybe in this project or other project, and use this information properly to our defense. Ashwin, do you agree with all this?
Yeah, as regards the orders of other project, we can certainly take help to show the bad intention of the promoter, his way of behavior, his fraudulent practices or unfair trade practices, to get more strongness to our case. But the more important thing is, okay, first we have to decide under which section I have to file the complaint. Say for example under section 12, then so far as my project is concerned, what was the false information or a misrepresentation? That is the most crucial factor. We should get it to make out our case. Otherwise, if any misdeeds are done in other project, that may not be helpful.
Again, in this project, actually, I come to a situation where I found out that the promoter has also delayed, and a large number of allottees have suffered, and they have approached MAHRERA. And on reading the order and the judgments, what was passed against the builder, I found that a dispute is raised, and the allottees appear to have a bitter experience from all this. So, Satish, your say on this?
As rightly pointed out by Ashwin Bhai, the details of other projects or other orders or other cases will not be helpful directly to the allottee. As a first condition, his own case must be strong. He shall stand on his own legs and not to depend on other cases of the against promoter.
Okay.
That all such orders will be helpful to some extent and to understand the promoter, but not entirely. The allottee shall not rely entirely on those details. Chetan.
In the same project, just go through the web page of the project details of the same project. At the bottom of that page, you will find the orders which have been passed for that project. So you can use those orders. You can find out what defenses were taken by other allottees, and you can use also the same defense. Now, how are the plans? Okay, see, there will be two, three places where you will get the plans. One is in the brochure, one is what he has submitted on the RERA website, or some other sources where he has advertised these plans. So, how are these plans useful to the allotee? Ashwin bhai.
See, one more source is you can file an application before the approving authority who has approved the plan under RTI. So you can, by paying some money, you can get a certified copy of the plan and open area, number of parking. And if you can make out a case, okay, there was some false information. Now, in one of the case which came before me, there were sanctioned plan when the developer has applied for the sanction of the plan. But after some time, say after 3 years, the plans needs to be renewed, and the plans were not renewed for say 1 year, and thereafter also still today also plans are not renewed because of lethargy on the part of promoter. So the customer has booked the apartment during those period where plans were not renewed, and this information we got from the competent authority or approval authority. So this become my base. This is a false information. Based on the date of booking, there were no plan, approved plan. So how can a builder offer an apartment to me without disclosing that renewal is pending before competent authority? So renewal was pending because of default on the part of the promoter. So this way we can collect the information.
Satish, your thoughts on the different plans which will be available, which have been got by the allotee, what
Allotee
we
has
have
to
got on the RERA website. Yeah, over to you, Satish.
Yeah. As pointed out by Ashwin Bhai, the one of the source is to get the plans from the authority itself. Now, most of planning authorities have their own website, and the allotee may find the plans and other details from the website of the MCGM, SRA, and other authorities, as the case may be. Now, the allotee, after getting all such plans, has to compare these plans with the brochure, with the original sanction plan, and the present approved plan. He has to check whether the design and the area of the flat or floors or specification given in the brochure are same, maintained or changed. This comparison also help the allotee to know whether the amenities like clubhouse and other common areas like garden or like other common areas, number of lifts, etc., as shown in the brochure, are same in the approved plans or not, or whether there is any change or not, whether there is any difference or not. So this information will be helpful if that are so crucial for the decision of the allotee to purchase the flat. Suppose he has purchased a flat in a layout and suddenly the number of floors have been increased, then he can claim, the allotee can claim that the original amenities that are available for X number of apartments that were proposed at the time of booking, now these amenities have to be shared with large number of or more number of allottees. So ultimately this is a permanent loss for the allotee. Or say garden is not given, or the specification of garden is not the same as shown in the brochure, or the swimming pool is not given. All such details can be helpful to establish his case under section 12.
Now it is a mandatory provision for the promoter developer to disclose all the litigations on the RERA website, on the RERA application when he registers his project. Okay, so how will the allotee find out whether all litigations are fully disclosed by the promoter or not? That's my first question. And the second question is that in case, see, during at the start, he will disclose all the litigations. During the process, if any new litigations comes any upon him, or he has litigated anyone, So within what time frame that litigation should be updated on the RERA website or on his application page?
So while registering the project, the promoter are required to upload the details of all the pending litigation, including the status of that litigation, which affects the land, title of the land, uh, like that. And again, whenever there are new litigation cropping up, the developer has to upload those details also in their quarterly update. So max to max, he has to have one update in one quarter. So he cannot prolong it. So within 90 days, he has to upload max to max from the last update. So when he upload and he does not upload the litigation, then that is a fault on the part of the promoter. So litigation has to be uploaded as early as possible.
Oh, that's a very good point. So within
Because
90
quarterly
days,
update means you have to revise your web page data. Whatever data is there, if there is any change in that, say for example, telephone number of the communication has changed or email ID has changed, that also has to be updated. Even change in the residence of the partner is there, that also has to be updated. So each and every data on the RERA web page, whenever there is a change, it should be updated as soon as possible.
that's very useful information. So within 90 days, whatever is the latest information that has to be updated. Satish, I will take your advice on this that now many times the builders or the developers, promoters will try to hide their litigations. So in this case, in such cases, when what are the different tools, techniques to find out is there any pending litigation or current litigation which has not been disclosed by the promoters? Satish, over to you.
Chetan, the allotee has to take searches on the websites of the sub-registrars, and if the pending litigation has been registered, then he may get the details regarding the litigation from that information. Or allotee shall take searches on the website of various courts and authorities, as well as the planning authorities of MCGM, where the where the promoter's name is reflected. So from all such sources, the allotee will be able to find out the litigation.
Satish,
However, the fact
yeah. Sorry, continue, Satish.
he has to see that these litigations are to what extent affecting the progress of the project and the promises made by the promoter. There will be hardly one project where there are no litigations. But the nature of litigation and its effect on the project or on the rights of allotee or the disclosures made by the promoter has to be verified. And in that sense, these details can be useful. Chetan.
Satish, sorry to interrupt you. You made the statement that the details of the cases will be in sub-register office. What type of cases are available? The details about such cases are available in the sub-registrar. That's a query of mine. And another part, usually many firms have 138 cases. Okay. Now 138 cases are not directly linked to the project, but the company may involve or the directors will be involved in such cases. So do these cases have to be again uploaded on the website which are not related to the project? Yes, Satish.
Ashwin bhai.
Litigation and encumbrances, so far as it relates to the land, should be disclosed. If there is a litigation between, in between the partner for some other matter, that need not be disclosed here, because these are the litigation on same account or like that. But this litigation which are affecting the title of the land or encumbrances, all that has to be disclosed, not other litigation. This is my view.
So
Chetan.
cases of 138 or
No.
such which directly not affect the project. So what is the law? Is it mandatory to disclose that litigation though it is on the company? Yeah, Ashwin, thoughts on this?
See, 138 case, say for example, there was a cancellation by an allotee, and against cancellation, builder has issued some check, and now check got bounced, and there is a 138 case. So now, so far as that plat is concerned, now again it will decide what are the terms of cancellation. Many times, builder are smart enough to get the cancellation immediately without honoring all the payment, and then he issue the post-dated check. So in such a scenario, such kind of litigation are not required to be disclosed. But if the right of the allotee remains in that project for which the checks are bounced in respect of that apartment, and if that litigations are not disclosed, then certainly there could be a basis to say that uh, developer has failed to upload the litigation in TrueSpeak. Again, it is on case-to-case basis. We'll have to see.
I conclude on this question is that only litigations which are related to the project should be uploaded or required to be uploaded on the RERA website.
So in some cases, if say in the 138 cases, there are large number of cases are filed against the promoter, and some arrest orders are passed, and in that cases, if longer sentence is given, then that will directly affect the project. So to that extent, the order may be helpful to the allotee.
In the present case, which we were just talking about, there were cases in the title certificate. The litigations were given in the title certificate, but these litigations were not mentioned in the litigation section of the promoters on the RERA web page, where the litigations had to be disclosed. So can we use this as a defense?
Chetan,
Hmm.
it is observed many times that while registering the project, say in 2017, we have come across the instances where the title certificate were issued dated 2012. The same were uploaded. The only condition right now is that advocate who issue the title certificate should be in practice for more than 10 years. This is the condition. But there is no condition attached as to the aging of that title certificate. The MARERA has not put any condition. Okay, the title certificate should not be more than 6 months old or like that. So if the title certificate is of 2012 and the bookings are done in 2017, so in between 12 and 17 there are many events which are happening, and such events are not disclosed in the title certificate or even not disclosed to the allotee, then there is certainly a case. But if the title certificate is very recent and again it fails to disclose all this litigation, then also there is a very good case. So while doing the booking formality, this aspect has to be looked upon by the customer, that he relies upon the title certificate which are recent one and not very old one.
Ashwin, sorry to interrupt. In this present case, the scenario was in the title certificate the cases were mentioned,
Hmm.
but in the litigation section of the builder's project page, it was not mentioned.
So then now, since as I said, the customer is a well informed customer because a project was registered with the RERA. The title certificate is also uploaded. Even when, if you look at the model agreement, there also there is one clause which says that customer has gone through the title certificate, approved plan, and so on, various details. So now it would be difficult for a consumer or customer to say that just because the litigation in litigation portion it is not mentioned, I could not make out that there are some pending litigation. Of course, that has to be mentioned, but title certificate if it is mentioned, and generally title certificate are issued, the title is subject to disclosed litigation. So again, there would be a good case for promoter also to fight out. Okay, I have mentioned in title certificate, which is the prime document, because without title certificate, you cannot get your project registered. Yeah, there was some technical error while uploading the litigation. Again, the authority will look into the intention of the promoter because he has disclosed in the title report, and the title report is also part of the agreement. So now consumer is a well informed consumer. So again, depending upon the facts of the each case, uh, the authority will come to a conclusion about the intention of the promoter.
Okay. Satish, your views on this?
Ashwin Bhai is right. The allotee has to establish that due to non-disclosure, the promoter has definitely contravened provisions of RERA regarding disclosure. However, whether that non-disclosure is intentional or not, and whether that non-disclosure has resulted in any losses to the allotee, that will be the case of the allotee that he has to establish.
Okay. Another scenario which we come regularly is that the plans which are uploaded on the Maharera project website regarding that project are not readable. Many of the documents are not readable. You know, the files are very compressed, or they are scanned at a very low resolution, which make them literally unreadable. So in this case, what the authorities can do?
Chetan, as I already said, Section 19(1) gives the right to the allotee to demand the copy of the sanction plan, layout plan, while going for the booking also, because these are the document which has to be kept at site office and sales office. This is a mandate on the part of the promoter. Again, he, as Satish has said, he can take the certified copy from the approval authority, or he can go to the website of that particular approval authority to find out the proper approved plan. Now, this is a practical hitch because Maharera, while uploading the document, does not allow more than 1 MB document. So, the compressing for reducing the size sometimes make this document non-readable. But allotee has all the right to ask for the copy of the sanction. He cannot say, okay, since the document were not readable, I was not able to find out all these things. Section 19(1) gives you the right, and you have to exercise your right and precaution while doing the bookings.
Okay. Okay. Now, in this present case, when we were going through this agreement, in one of the clauses, it, it imposed an obligation for the flat purchaser to verify the titles, plans, etc. Now, therefore, let us analyze the provisions of the draft agreement available on Maharera website. And I think Satish has gone through that. So, Satish, many, you know, many such allottees of different projects might have fallen prey to such similar conditions. So just can you discuss the conditions and give your thoughts one by one on that, the general conditions which were there in this agreement? Satish.
Yes, Chetan. See, while going through the draft of the draft agreement uploaded on the Maharera website of this particular project, one can found that there are various blanks, and there is a reference of various annexures, but those annexures are not annexed to that draft agreement or anywhere in the website. So to that extent, the developer has not made true disclosure regarding the agreement or other required mandatory details. So the allotee will not be in a position to verify independently the title of the project. Similarly, the as you pointed out, the plans are that are uploaded are not readable. Hence, to that extent also, the promoter has not fully complied with the requisite mandatory provisions regarding the disclosure. This is the first point. The title certificate that is uploaded clearly says that the title of the promoter is subject to the encumbrances that are the litigations disclosed in that title certificate. And as you have pointed out, some of the litigations have not been disclosed on the particular uh, field on the website of Maharashtra. So ultimately, the title of the promoter to develop the project is not clear. Is directly confirmed from that point mentioned in the title certificate itself. Second point, I have found out that the structural engineer of the project, though appears to be a separate entity and may be a highly professional organization, it appears that it is related to the promoter's entity itself and is one of the group concern of the promoters group. So that definitely there will be a possibility of conflict of interest and there are chances of lapses. So here the case of fire in other project of the promoter will be helpful. Let's see, such incidents have been happened in past. So the allottee can ask or point out to the authority that the structural engineer is not independent authority, not independent agency, and that's why this is a crucial point for the project. The major point that I have found that is regarding the FSI disclosure, which is the most important and mandatory disclosure. And there are serious discrepancies in the disclosures made on the website of the project as well as made in the agreement. On the website of Maharera, promoter has shown the total FSI is 19,052 square meters, whereas clause 5 of the draft agreement provides that the FSI will be 1,14,879.32 square meters. Suppose there is a layout, however, the promoter has to give a bifurcation because these two numbers does not reveal the true disclosure. Clause 5 also says that the promoter has disclosed 1,14,000 FSI and the recital clause J of the agreement provides that the plot area is 86,719 square meters, whereas the recital N of the draft agreement says that the project plot area is 77,790 square meters. Clause 5 of the agreement says that the FSI available is 1,06,140 square meters. Thus, all these figures differ. And the promoter has further provided that he wants to utilize FSI of 1,26,000, though the permissible FSI is 1,06,114. The promoter has not clarified how he is entitled to utilize FSI of 1,26,000, where the permissible FSI admittably is 1,06,000. So there is total confusion as far as this disclosure is concerned, and this may lead to disputes in the future. Next point, the payment schedule given in the agreement is not as per the provision of section 13 of Maharera, and there are several blanks in the payment schedule as well. The clause 2, subclause 2 provides the sale of parking area. However, the layout has clearly provided that the promoter has no right to sell the parking area being part of the common area. Even as per RERA, if entire relevant clauses are read, then it is clear that promoter has no right to sell the parking to the promoter. In fact, the condition of approval of the plans will reveal that the promoter has to provide certain number of parkings for certain number size of the flat. So as per that condition also, the promoter has to provide parking to the allottee. Similarly, clause 3J of the agreement is one-sided and unfair. The forfeiture provision in clause number 6.2, subclause I and subclause 3, subclause 4 are not part of the agreed terms, and therefore they are unfair, unjust and unreasonable, as well as contrary to provisions of RERA. The next clause 6 provisions are also not acceptable. The proviso 3 to clause 8 is not in conformity with the section 6 of RERA for extension purpose or section 18 and 12 for interest and compensation. This clause in the agreement is taking away the right of cancellation, which is illegal. Hence, entire subclause should not be accepted. Considering the pending litigations, the second proviso and negative provision in the title certificate, the second clause to clause number 8 of the agreement shall not be accepted, which is regarding the embargo on cancellations right of the allotee. Clause 8 of the agreement is also not in conformity with the RERA as well as the settled principle of law. Clause 9.1 to 9.4 also should not be accepted in the event of Part OC. This clause is regarding the possession of the apartment. Now, the provisions regarding the maintenance charges provided in the clause 9.1, 9.3, 12.3 and 13 are not in conformity with the section 6 of MOFA and section 11 subsection 4D of RERA, which provides that the promoter has to supply essential services at reasonable price. The maintenance charges will be payable only after execution of conveyance and getting full OC of the project as per provision of section 6 of MOFA, along with all agreed amenities, areas and facilities. And therefore, the provisions regarding maintenance is not in conformity with the MOFA. Clause 13 is also not in conformity with section 11.4D of RERA and section 5 of MOFA regarding the other charges. Here, the promoter has charged a substantial amount for getting water connections, etc., electric connection, big part of most of basic, which are part of the most basic facilities for the project and apartment. So promoter cannot make additional profits by collecting huge amounts in different names as other charges. Promoter has not clarified which legal services he will provide, for which he is charging rupees 25,000 to the allotee, and that provision is again contrary to the clause 14 of the same agreement. And particularly after charging rupees 25,000 for formation of society, after charging rupees 25,000 for formation of society at clause 13.2, the promoter cannot again levy same charges in name of legal charges and under different subclause. So even otherwise, the formation of society, executing and registering agreement, executing conveyance, etc., statutory duties of the promoter. And for discharging those duties, the promoter cannot claim other charges from the allotee, and this is illegal. Again, the promoter has made provision for demurrage, which is contrary to provision regarding maintenance charges. However, allotee can be penalized for the same thing, and he shall be asked to pay double the amount for same service. The defective liability clause is also not reasonable, as well as it's totally against the provision made in the RERA as well as in the draft agreement of RERA. Clause 11 is not as per the legislative intention. The promoter shall liable to form the society as soon as the 50% of the allotted flats are booked. Again, promoter has make a provision to obtain NOC before applying for membership of the society. This is not acceptable. Again, the provision to obtain consent of the promoter to make any bylaws is also not acceptable, because the changes or making any bylaw is the right of the allotee, and promoter cannot have any say. Similarly, clause 12.2 of the agreement is not in conformity with the recent notification regarding the conveyance in favor of individual society. Clause 12.2 provides that the conveyance of the entire layout will be executed only after the formation of federation, So again, this clause is not acceptable and is illegal. There are various clauses where promoters have claimed more rights or authorities or powers in clause 16 and 17, 90, 20 and 21. All such clauses are not in conformity with RERA. Any provision that gives more right, authority or power than conferred by the law is illegal, and therefore the promoter cannot impose additional obligations or impose additional restriction on rights of the allottees that are already given by law to the allottee, and to that extent these provisions shall be modified. Chetan.
Thank you, Satish. It was a tedious task of studying the whole agreement and getting such views on that. But Ashwin, I'll ask you one question. In this case, the allottee has booked the flat, and now after booking the flat, he later finds out all these irregularities or things not up to the mark or as per the law or one-sided agreement. So now, based on this defense, can the allottee ask for withdrawal of the project and his amount to be refunded?
I will like to differ on this because section 13 of the act provides for the agreement for sale and the draft is provided by rule 10. Now this draft is a model draft. The content of the model draft, it is very well mentioned in the very beginning itself. The content of the model draft can be changed, but within the four corner of the law, that is RERA law. Now, whatever contents are mentioned, say if anything wrong is mentioned, anything illegal is mentioned, that becomes void ab initio. Say for example, if builder say I will execute the agreement after receipt of 30% of money, that clause itself becomes void ab initio. So, but that cannot be the false information. Again, the main source of the false information is the title report and the plans, FSI and all this detail. But this draft agreement again can go, say for example, for Mr. X, there could be a variation in the draft agreement. For Mr. Y, there could be a variation. As regards the stage of payment, suppose there is an investor, he can pay entire 100% on execution of agreement. So this goes on changing, but this has to be within the four corner of law. So again, whatever is wrong written, so it is a well settled principle that contractual obligation cannot go beyond the legal friction, cannot go beyond the judicial pronouncement. So even if there is a mention of sale of open parking, but that clause itself is a void ab initio. So that cannot be a false information for the purpose of section 12. Section 12 is very clear. On the date of booking, what was the false information? So that one has to make out. Just mentioning that I am ready to say I have right to sell the parking space cannot become the false information. See, as a allottee, I can always refuse that clause. I can, while executing the agreement, I can always say I don't want this clause. That is my right. But if I don't exercise my right and still goes on executing the agreement, then I cannot take benefit of my own misdeed. So there are certain contractual obligations which are within the four corner of law, though differentiating as per the model draft will be held to be lawful, but of course which are beyond law, that will be struck down. In so far as the parking is concerned, in Nalchand Laluchand case, Supreme Court has very well established this principle. In that case, all the allottee have agreed that promoter has right to sell the open parking, but then it was negated by Supreme Court, saying that contractual obligation cannot override the legal friction. So in my view, draft agreement may not be the source for establishing the fact that there is a false information. Again, it depends on case to case basis. One has to study what could be the prime condition for section 12 is false information. And that is also on the date of booking, not otherwise.
Okay, Satish, your thoughts on this, just in short?
Yeah, Chetan, Ashwin Bhai is right. However, in this case, or like in similar cases, the allotee shall immediately ask the promoter and point out all such clauses and that are not as per the agreed terms or which are not as per the law or which are not in conformity with the model agreement or which are not in conformity with the RERA provisions. And immediately after pointing out, allotee shall ask the promoter to remove or modify such clauses. And in that event, if the promoter agrees for changes, then there is no issue. But the moment promoter denies, in which is the in most cases the promoter denies. So
Okay.
that will be a ground for the allotee to approach Maharera that see this agreement is not in conformity with the provisions of RERA or which is not as per the agreed terms and my rights will be curtailed or the promoter is under the grab of this agreement is want to get more rights than that are confirmed by the law. And this will be a ground for the allotee to approach Maharera to prevent the promoter from access from executing such one-sided and unfair terms in the agreement.
So in that case, can the allotee ask for refund or withdrawal of the project, or the court will direct the promoter to change the agreement conditions?
Uh,
As soon as the promoter denies, the allotee can ask that I am not ready to execute such unfair and one-sided agreement. And in that situation, we will definitely have a right to withdraw from the project. Ashwin bhai.
Ashwin, bhai, your thoughts on this? Quick.
Read section 12, where any person makes an advance or deposit on the basis of information contained in the notice of advertisement or prospectus, or on the basis of any model apartment plot or building, as the case may be, and sustain any loss or damage by reason of any incorrect, now these words are important, by reason of any incorrect, false statement included therein, he shall be compensated by promoter in the manner prescribed. So what is important is that at the time of booking in the prospectus or advertisement or the model apartment, that is the plans and all these things, by reason of any incorrect or false statement. Now again, suppose promoter has not given any information, so can section 12 come? Because here it talks about incorrect or false information contained therein. No, not giving information, whether we can say that this is a false information or incorrect information, because I have not given any information. Now what the wordings of section 12 says, incorrect or false statement contained therein. So for example, promoter has not gave any information in the prospectus. So can this provision be invoked? Because there is no statement, there is no information. So how can there be an incorrect or false information? Or can we say that non-giving of information itself is an incorrect or false information? So again, coming to the model draft agreement, I believe again we have to take a call on case-to-case basis, and we have to establish if this was the false information on that given point of time and not thereafter. So on the way, on the date of booking, suppose the date of booking is December 2019. So whatever information which were required to be disclosed and that are not disclosed on that point of time becomes the false information. So again, there are various controversies amongst the adjudication officer on the wording as regards incorrect or false information. And non-giving of information, can we say that is a incorrect or false information?
So by Ashwin bhai, this itself will not be a false information, but this is the moment the promoter denies to modify will give a cause of action to the allotee to cancel the booking on the ground that the promoter is insisting to execute an illegal agreement, and on that for that reason the allotee will otherwise would have getting the flat and got their amenities and etc. And now because of this reason he is not able to get this flat, and he is suffering or he will suffer so and so losses, and in that manner he can invoke the section 12. Ashwin.
Then, Satish bhai, in that case, then authority may direct the promoter to remove all this illegality. And then promoter agrees, then I don't think refund will come.
Correct. Correct.
Promoter is now agreeing to the direction of the authority.
Yeah.
So, false information is a very crucial terminology.
Yeah, correct. But the situation here will be like such that the promoter will not be normal. In normal cases, promoter will not agree because it will affect his other allottees cases also. That
It
then,
it all depends on the
yeah,
to case basis. Like promoter don't want to give refund, then he may agree in one case.
yeah. So this will be a tool for safe exit from the project for the allottee.
Okay. Now we go a little bit further. In many cases, we find that the percentage of price paid is not in par with the work on the site, and the promoter is still demanding further installments. So in that scenario, what are your thoughts?
See, Chetan, agreement for sale is a contractual obligation between buyer and seller. So model draft agreement though provides certain percentage, the promoter and allottee have right to change those percentage if they are agreeing, both are agreeing on execution. They may provide for time-wise payment rather than completion, percentage of completion. Say for example, in June 2020, I will pay 5 lakh rupees. In September 20, I will pay another 5 lakh rupees and so on. Irrespective of stage, it's a contract between two competent persons, which are valid under Indian Contract Act. Model agreement is a guideline. If you are doing the thing as per law, you can modify the agreement to that extent. But if you are going beyond the law, because nowhere in the RERA Act it is prescribed that promoter cannot take 100% on execution of agreement, or 70% or 30%. This is a model draft of agreement, and which is the very note on the draft agreement says that the terms can be varied, but within the four corner of law.
Satish, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, Ashwin bhai is right. In that event, the allottee has to compare the payment schedule given in the agreement with the payment schedule given at the time of booking. And if there is any difference, then the allottee can point out.
The main reason the allottee in this project for selecting the project was the brand of the promoter. Aforesaid facts and provisions of the draft agreements are completely in contradiction to the high claims, representations and assurance given by the marketing team at the time of the booking. Allottee will be upset and will lose faith and trust. Whether allottee has sufficient grounds on this to exercise his option of withdrawal?
As per my view, yes, the facts as revealed that proved false one comparison, then definitely, and the illegal clauses, if not removed by the promoter, will shake the belief and trust of the allottee in the promoter, and that even no one can force the allottee to continue the booking because the very foundation of that booking has been shaken. Ashwin bhai.
Again, he has, say for example, in January 2019, he booked the apartment on the basis that the brand image of a particular promoter was very good. But because of some happening that in some other project or some other judicial ruling, the brand image of projector has gone down in say March 2019. Now, can we say that this was the false? See, again, I am coming to the false information. Can we say that this was the false information? Certainly not, because these are the event which has occurred after the booking. So, on the date of booking, it is the duty of the allottee to take a reasonable call on the brand image of the promoter. So whatever law has put a mandate on the promoter, and if the promoter fails to disclose those mandate, then certainly one can say that there is a false information as regards title, as regards plan, open area, parking, structure, clubhouse, amenities, and so on. There can be n number of reason for false information. Even in some of the cases, even when the revised timeline is given by the promoter while registering the project, ongoing project, that itself becomes a false information, because I was told a possession will be given in December 2016, but now while registering the project, he is mentioning 2022. So that itself is a false information, and there are various instances of judgment which are in the favor of allotee. This is also a false information. So the main substance is you have to establish the false information on the date of booking.
Okay. Ashwin and Satish, another general question. In many times, it is written in the agreement, in the draft agreement, it is written that in case of cancellation, there will be a forfeiture of 10%. Usually, it's 10% is written, 5 or 10% is written. Now, since this agreement is not registered, okay, the agreement is not registered, so this condition of forfeiture in case of withdrawal or cancellation of the booking by the allotee cannot be imposed. Okay, but again, on the other hand, there is no such terms and conditions given while time of booking about the forfeiture percentage of on cancellation. So, is it right if the allotee cancels the flat for whatever reasons? Okay, for his personal reasons, if he cancels the flat. So, if there is no percentage mentioned in any terms and conditions except in the draft agreement, so is it legal for the promoter to cut that percentage of that?
Not at all, because if the booking form or the allotment letter does not contain any forfeiture clause, then promoter cannot ask for the forfeiture amount. But now I am coming to one more question. I am posing the question. Okay, suppose the cancellation is not acceptable to the promoter because it is one side. So can you force the promoter to refund the principal, say for example without interest also? Can the law force the promoter to refund the amount, because he is saying that I am not agreeing to the cancellation. There is no such cancellation provision in the booking form or allotment letter, terms of cancellation by giving 30 days notice. Or
In case of voluntary cancellation, if the terms of forfeiture is mentioned in the allotment letter or booking form or application or whatever documents are available, the stand of the promoter will be that I have already uploaded the agreement before the allotee has booked the flat, and he was aware that this agreement was the ultimate document that was to be executed between the parties. And in the allotment letter also, the parties have referred that they will execute the agreement after so and so event. So in that sense, the promoter can insist for the forfeiture amount and not otherwise. If the promoter is able to satisfy this condition, then promoter will be entitled to deduct certain amount which is reasonable for the forfeiture or deductions or so and so in name of brokerage or other charges, etc., and not otherwise. But in case of voluntary, there are so many judgments or the orders that the allotee has not been allowed to withdraw from the project and seek interest or compensation from the promoter. And in that event, the allotee will not be able to satisfy the authority to justify cancellation, except there are unavoidable circumstances like medical reasons or etc. Chetan.
So the question still remains I think Satish, I'm not satisfied with your answer. I think you just missed out on what Ashwin said. If the builder or if the promoter says, I don't want to cancel it, so in that scenario, what is it? I don't want to cancel your booking.
Yeah. In that situation, the allottee has to use the tools of Section 12 and point out various discrepancies in the agreement and other situations and force the promoter.
But Satish, suppose there are no such instances.
Yeah.
12 cannot be invoked. Can promoter say, you bring the customer, I will transfer your right to that customer, but I will not cancel your booking? Can promoter say so? Because I don't want to cancel. You bring the customer, I am ready to give my NOC. I am ready to transfer your right in the allotment to some other person. But I
The
am not.
voluntary cancellation right has not been given to allottee under RERA or even under MOFA.
So then, in such a scenario, it would be a difficult proposition for a customer to go for voluntary cancellation.
Correct.
So that means he will lose his, and if he doesn't want to pay ahead, so in worst case he will lose whatever he has paid.
That's why the information collected by the allottee, as we have pointed out in earlier discussion, a professional will be able to make out a case in favor of allottee
Right.
and satisfy MHARERA that due to these circumstances, the allottee is not able to continue with the project because of so and so false information which are now revealed and which were earlier suppressed by the promoter. And on that ground, he can invoke Section 12, but not directly, but via media.
On Section 12, suppose there are no possibility of Section 12. Now, can we have to study the Indian Contract Act? Then again, in such a scenario, when nothing is mentioned as to the cancellation policy, then the contract will be performed in what manner? Because again, that is a very good point for our study so far as Indian Contract Act is concerned in this context.
Yes.
Right, Chetan?
Okay. We'll go ahead from this topic now. Now, in this case, if the allottee has taken the final decision to withdraw from the project, so what factors will the allottee consider?
Allottee has to make a proper list of whatever payments are made, whatever brokerage, whatever loss he has suffered. And he has to even prove the compensation part also, because why I am claiming so much amount of compensation also. And if adjudication officer is satisfied, then he may grant order subject to fulfilling condition of Section 12 or 18 as the case may be. Any other loss which is caused, because compensation has to be adjudged by adjudication officer, and he will have to file Form B for claiming the compensation, and he can't just say, okay, for mental agony I am claiming 1 lakh rupees compensation. He will have to substantiate it, okay, what has gone through, like he was in hospital or whatever his family has suffered because of the misdeed of the promoter. So all these factors should be mentioned in the complaint itself. An adjudication officer will go through all this. If he is satisfied, then he will grant relief in the form of compensation and refund and interest. This is my view.
Okay. I think we have come to the end of our panel discussion. Initially, when we started, I thought it would be an 30-minute discussion, but it was so interesting. We ended up with more than, I think, 1.5 hours discussing on this issue.
2 hours. It's 2 hours.
2 hours. Okay. We had a 2 hours discussion.
I am ready.
It was very interesting.
Chetan, I am ready to debate for 5 hours also, because this is a very hot topic.
Okay, some other day we'll have another discussion.
One point is very crucial, which we will discuss later on, whether Section 12 is prospective or retrospective, because there was no such Section 12 under MOFA. So, but then this itself will require another 1 hour.
Okay, it's a hot topic. In our next discussion, we are sure to take this topic. I'm sure Advocate Satish also would join us in this. I would like to end today's panel discussion with a big thank you to Ashwin Bhai and Satish Bhai for taking up their valuable time and giving their thoughts, inputs on this. It was a great honor for me to be a part of this discussion, and I hope that we'll have further more discussions like this on this medium, and we can record this conversation and put it on these media channels which are available for the benefit of the public in large. Okay, thank you guys. Have a great
Thank you.
day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Ashwin.